I think that's what happens to most people in this world. They work their whole life and then they retire. A lot of retirees don't last long. They have no purpose in life anymore. Didn't you used to be Jake the Snake Roberts, man? What happened to you?
You're a sick man, Robert.
Oh, that's true, I am. At least you know that.
All these things that happened to me as a kid, they make you who you are.
Yo, Jake. We haven't heard from you in a while. Give me a call. A month ago you did crack.
How often do you feel like you fight the addiction?
24/7.
Before anyone can actually help you, you gotta be ready to help yourself.
It's not a choice, man. When the cravings hit you, it's on.
I'm right here. This is the beginning.
And I can't change what I did. I don't want to hurt him or me anymore, or anybody else who cares about me.
Our dad is changing.
He tapped me on the chest. He said, son, I want more time. I want more time with you.
No one believes it's gonna happen.
All I can do is change what I'm going to do tomorrow.
So what do you really want?
I want to be free.
It's time for Movie Month. It is my third annual Movie Month, in which I will be watching 30 movies in 30 days, and I'll either hate them or give them praise. I first became a fan of professional wrestling really when I was a little kid, like most people. I think, it's just something I might have stumbled upon on TV. I don't remember my dad really watching it. I know my grandfather sometimes watched it, and I grew up. I was born in the '70s, grew up mostly in the '80s and the '90s, and really, I was 10 years old when the first WrestleMania kind of premiered. Not kind of premiered. I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. And that's when wrestling became this huge thing. MTV was new, music videos were new, rock and wrestling was this big thing, and Hulk Hogan was this bigger than life, larger than life, superhero, for lack of a better term. And wrestling just kind of became this giant mainstream nationwide product, which is not something that it's always been. And I was at the right age at the right time to kind of get sucked in early on. And I remember being a little kid going to Methuen High School with my dad and my brother, and I think my uncle and my cousin. And we went to see like WWE, well, WWF, actual wrestlers wrestling at Methuen High. And I remember one of those wrestlers being Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, years go by, and, probably, I remember being 7th, 8th grade, being a subscriber to WWF magazine, and then high school hit, and I just kind of faded away from it. Didn't really watch it as much. It was on from time to time, and then every so often my brother would want to get WrestleMania, and I remember getting a few of those. Then college hit, and I pretty much kind of abandoned it altogether. I don't even think I ever watched Monday Night Raw, and I was a junior in college when I had a roommate who was huge into wrestling, and I was like, what? Dude, what's wrong with you? And he had posters, he had books where they talked about rankings. He would go with his friends on Monday night to go watch it at places. I didn't get it at all. Then, my senior year of college, we finally got cable television in our dorms. And I happened to turn it on a Monday night, and I started watching it. And at that time, you would flip back and forth between USA and TNT, between WWF and WCW. And I didn't know WCW. That was something my cousin watched and knew about. And I never quite was familiar with it. So I was always a WWF, WWE guy. This is really a long-winded way of getting to today's movie, but bear with me. Just giving you a quick history of how a 39-year-old man could still be watching wrestling. I'm still 39, so let's hold on to that. And it's Monday night, so guess what I'm doing tonight? Or it's Monday, so guess what I'm doing tonight? It's not Monday night yet. It's Monday, beautiful Monday morning. I like tangents, and I like talking and, kind of losing where I'm going and reeling it right back in to say that I really started enjoying wrestling, and it started to feel, it was different than what I grew up on. It was a little edgier. I was a little, it was live, or it felt live. And they wouldn't just have these scrubinis, these nobodies wrestling, semi-familiar people on Saturday morning. You'd see these, big name guys fighting each other every week. And I remember telling my brother to watch it, and he was home at the time still. He was working out of college, and he would watch it, and I would watch it, and we'd start talking about it. And that lasted for a couple of years, because it was around the time of Stone Cold Steve Austin too. That was the big deal. And I remember, we'd both be out of college, both still living at home, and we'd get together on Monday nights. He'd tape it on the VHS machine, and we would fast forward. We would actually fast forward through the wrestling sometimes just to get to the storylines. It was okay. There's nothing going on here. Fast forward. And then in 2000, I remember getting married and still watching it a little bit. And 2001, and at that point, prior to that, I'd be checking the internet all the time for news and information on it, because I was more fascinated with the behind-the-scenes stuff, almost as much, or if not more, than the actual stories in the wrestling, the business, the behind-the-scenes, what goes into making the show, what goes into what these guys do for the 20 plus hours that they're not wrestling. It actually interested me, and I read a couple books on it. I read Mick Foley's book on it, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but it faded away again, where I stopped watching wrestling. It just kind of, I would miss it on a Monday night. I think I was married now, so I was just kind of wasn't watching it as much, and then it kind of faded away, and I had no idea what was going on. To the point where WWE now had a reality show. I watched that. It was about people trying to get into the wrestling business. I watched that, but I still wasn't watching Monday Night Raw. We'd get together and I'd watch WrestleMania with my cousins, but I didn't quite know the characters or the story that was going on, but I still enjoyed it. Then in 2011, I think I was on Barstool Sports, and I caught a video of CM Punk, this guy who came out and gave this crazy interview, or this crazy promo in front of a crowd that felt really different and real. And I started watching it again, and I said, okay, let me, put it on Monday night and check this out. And, sorry, people just walking by, they don't know I'm talking about wrestling. And that was 2011, and I started watching it more, and I still wasn't watching live. I would record it, and I'd catch up on it. I'd fast forward through it. And then I dropped my DVR, and I started watching it through Hulu the next day or so, a 90-minute show. Okay, great. I can still understand what was going on. Then I kind of started getting more and more into Twitter, and I created a Twitter account specifically to talk and blog about wrestling. I don't blog about wrestling that much, but I realized that the tweeting was actually something that really exploded during shows, during Monday Night Raw, and during their Thursday night show or Friday night show at the time, SmackDown. I didn't really watch SmackDown. I still don't watch SmackDown, but I hope that might change soon. But it was the Twitter and the live feeling that even though I'm sitting at home watching this alone, and my wife's walking by shaking her head, that I'm kind of watching it with other people, and I got, I like posting interesting tweets or try to be funny. Basically, most of the time I try to be funny. And that's kind of stuck with me to this day, to the point where, I'm watching wrestling every week for 3 hours on Monday nights. I have the WWE Network, so on Sunday nights when they do their monthly pay-per-views, I watch those on Sunday nights, and it's coming soon. SmackDown's going to be live on Tuesday nights, so they expect us to watch Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. But this is just a precursor to what today's movie is about. Now look back in the 80s at Methuen High School, the first live, I just got an email from WWE Now, buy one shirt, get one for $5. But the first live show that I remember ever seeing was at Methuen High School, and on the card, and I remember having the card that I'm pretty sure my grandfather got for me. was Jake the Snake Roberts, and he was out there with his snake Damien. Jake the Snake was that wrestler. He was part of the boom of the '80s. He was not an overly muscular guy. He was a really kind of a soft-spoken, scary guy who would just come out there and give you a look. But he'd come out there with this giant snake wrapped around his shoulders, and he had this move he called the DDT. And that was a move that you didn't have to be like jump or flip. You could just grab somebody, grab them by the neck and fall backwards so you land on their head. Now you think that might not be the safest thing in the world, but as a kid, that was a move that me and my brother did on each other constantly. Now there was a bed and a giant mattress, so we were pretty safe, but he was instantly endeared. Is that the word? I don't know, but he was definitely became a fan favorite right away, whether he was a good guy or a bad guy. But he was the guy who was there in the 80s, early 90s. And I remember years later watching a documentary called Beyond the Mat and seeing this old, crack-smoking shell of a man. And it was Jake the Snake Roberts. And I thought, my God, what has he done? What has become of his life? And you remember, you'd hear stories where he would show up at wrestling shows drunk. You'd see videos of him kind of showing up at shows and not performing, just barely being able to walk. And, it's a sad state of affairs, but, when you hear a wrestler dies, especially a wrestler from that era, it's not as shocking as it should be. And these guys are not old men. But, the toll that the way they lived their lives then, the way they live their lives now, and the toll that some of the things they did in the ring took on their bodies, the pain that they're in, it's a sad reality. And you wouldn't have been surprised if Jake the Snake became another statistic. But that's not what this movie's about. This movie is the resurrection of Jake Roberts. There's a wrestler out there named Diamond Dallas Page. He's a wrestler. He's a retired wrestler now. He didn't start wrestling until he was 35 years old, so he was already old when he got into the biz, and that was in the 90s. But he's a guy who's held himself together, and to the fact where he's developed his own workout. And he was even on Shark Tank once trying to sell this workout. It didn't work. He didn't get investment, but I can see from videos of his website to these wrestlers that have been doing it, that it is absolutely effective workout. It's called DDP Yoga. His name was in the wrestling world is Diamond Dallas Page, DDP, and he created DDP Yoga, which is the tagline is not your mama's yoga. If you look up DDP Yoga, you'll be able to see all kinds of things on YouTube, or you'll be able to see things on Jake the Snake, or this other wrestler, Scott Hall, or there's a bunch of wrestlers even right now who are a little older, but they're doing the DDP Yoga to kind of keep flexible and keep in shape. I guess from what I've heard, it's just every testimonial has been good. I think my brother actually ordered it. My brother has it. I don't know if he's actually put the DVDs in yet, but it's something that I'm tempted to go to his house and steal from him and give a try, as I'm trying to get myself in better shape. But basically this DDP Yoga, this guy Diamond Dallas Page, he was brought up in the business with Jake the Snake. He was his mentor early on, and he saw that he's been friendly with Jake over the years, and he saw that Jake was in trouble, and he saw that Jake was not doing good. So he basically moved the guy into his house and said, we're going to make you better. You're going to have to work on it. No drinking, no drugs, and they're going to start doing this workout. And this movie is kind of the story of watching this guy who was overweight, could barely move, just steadily improving. And it wasn't all perfect. He would fall off the wagon from here to there. He would be hurt, and he would drink, and he would lie, and he would cover it up, and then he would ask for forgiveness, and then he'd keep working and keep working. And he'd always say this line, "My history is not my destiny," or something like that. And that I thought was a great way of looking at that. What's behind you doesn't define what comes next. You can kind of, make up your own destiny. And that's basically what he did, to the point where, I don't want to spoil things, but if you're a wrestling fan, you already know what happens. The guy ends up making an appearance on WWE Raw and ends up getting inducted in 2014 into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, for the people outside the wrestling business, or fans, I should say, just people who aren't wrestling fans, that means nothing to you. Like, there's a Hall of Fame. Well, there's a Hall of Fame. There's not a place, but there's a kind of, a quote unquote Hall of Fame that travels with the company sometimes, and really it's more like a special club you're in. And it's the WWE, so they pretty much decide. It's not all of wrestling; it's just for them, and they get to pick and choose who they think is worthy. But for these guys, it's a huge deal. And for a fan, you realize, they're getting honored. And in 2014, Jake got in, and he, this guy with his scraggly hair, chubby belly, his stomach was coming out of his shirt, who could barely move. He walked up there, short hair, lost a lot of weight, just had his family there with him, had his kids, some of his kids and his grandkids, something that he, if you saw him in Beyond the Mat, you never think he'd speak to his kids again. So, there's a few different ways of looking at it. As a wrestling fan, I just thought it was interesting to see. As just a human being, it was just a good story of a life. It's not really a story. It's really happening. And this was the first movie this month where it's not like I'm watching, something just to be, enjoyable. Like, I watched 2 other documentaries, and one of them was on this movie company. And what the hell's going on here? Some woman just drove up in a golf cart. I thought she was going to talk to me, but she didn't. So I watched 2 documentaries this month. One was on a crazy movie studio, and the other one was on a crazy movie that almost happened. Those are fun, lighthearted, entertainment movies. This documentary was just the first one where, maybe I had something in my eye, or I was cutting onions. I don't know, but I definitely teared up a bit. And this was the first one where it felt like life or death. And, that's 2014. I think Jake's still doing okay. I know that I'm pretty sure he's been a voice on the WWE's new cartoon on their network. And, I think there was a cancer scare there for a while, but I'm pretty sure he's gotten through that. I should probably do a little more research on that. Oh, uh-oh. See, man, you never know what's going to happen. So my wife just walked outside with her parents' dog and my dog. We have this double leash. And she ran out to me and handed me the dog and had to run back in because there was a phone call she had to take. And so I'm standing right here with a double leash right now with 2 dogs, hoping they both, you know what I hope they do. I'm not, this is it's like those retractable leashes. So this is a double-headed one, and I got 2 dogs attached to it. It's very strange, but it's kind of cool. So where was I? So, I don't quite know exactly where Jake is at this moment, but I'd like to look it up. And this movie's on Netflix. It's an hour and a half long. It looked like it was mostly, put together with the help of crowdfunding. Because the credits were basically a few of the guys who did the filming, a few executive producers, and then the crowdfunding. And I thought that was kind of cool. If you are a fan of 80s wrestling, if you are a fan of wrestling now, or if you're just interested in documentaries, and it's a lot about addiction, and a lot about, about redemption and trying to stay healthy and clean. And there's a lot with another wrestler named Scott Hall, who was kind of going through the similar thing. They brought him into the house too, and they focused on him improving as well. DDP is a saint. If I ever get the chance to do DDP yoga, I'm definitely gonna trust in it because I trust in this guy, and I just hope the best for Jake the Snake. He's given millions of people years and years of entertainment, and it ain't over yet. And that's all I really want to say about today's movie. And I think I talked more about my wrestling fandom than I did the movie, but that's kind of how it is, the movie speaks for itself. And yeah, so I that's why I posted this. I'm posting this not only on my Geek Mentality Geek Mentality podcast, but also this is going to be up on WrestleFania. So if you are a fan of WrestleFania, this is a little special just for you guys. This is day 27 of 30 watching movies. If you want to go over to fansnotexperts.com and check out all the other movies, you can follow me on Twitter at Geek Mentality. Or if you're into wrestling, you can follow me on Twitter at WrestleWatcher. I'll be watching wrestling tonight. And, of course, everything's at fansnotexperts.com. And, yeah, I mean, what else do I got to say? That is it. So please play my music. This is my podcast. I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe. 'Cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fans Not Experts.